Well, welcome back to the New England Cannabis Convention here at the Heinz Auditorium in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm Jimmy Young at the Cannabis Multimedia Network booth. We've been live streaming since about 10 this morning, and it's pretty amazing. First of all, the crowd is not even close to what it's going to be tomorrow. So we expect tomorrow to be much bigger than it is today, but we've had some great guests, some great conversations. Nicole Spiller, one of my graduates from the Young Broadcasters of America, and a friend is in the middle here. His name is Walter Sullivan. He's an attorney and someone who has been actively involved in the cannabis movement for a number of years now. Am I right?
Jimmy, we've had a good time, haven't we?
I always have a good time, Walter.
I know that, and I think it's because of the cannabis.
You know what?
Now, Nicole doesn't touch the stuff, so we're doing
Well,
fine.
it isn't about. It's about a responsible use of an adult use product.
That sounds like alcohol and cannabis.
There you go. The important
Good thing
thing
for an
is,
Irish kid to have.
you certainly want to learn what your limits are.
Very much so.
And don't
marijuana is not for everybody.
Correct.
Alcohol is not for everybody.
Correct. And have you been reprimanded for using the word marijuana? You understand how racist
It's cannabis.
It's cannabis.
Right. And just to let you know, City of Cambridge, when they did their ordinance before the city council, they specifically brought that up and amended their ordinance just to say cannabis, exactly for the same reason you just said.
I liked hearing that. I wish that lesson would be...
What is the connotation with marijuana?
So who's going to give her the history lesson? Okay. So back in the 1930s, not that I was alive, but, I read about it in my history books. The United States government had prohibited alcohol. And, of course, they'd also prohibited... Very good.
You read about that in a book, right?
She's a college grad, okay? Prohibition. Exactly. And I've written a blog about how in 1937 I believe the wrong drug was legalized. I think that if we were reversing it all and alcohol just became legal in 2016, we'd be going through a lot of the same things with
It'd be the exact same thing,
but with a lot less ammunition with science and research.
True.
Okay, hold that thought. Marijuana. So the DuPonts, the Hearsts, and Harry Anslinger, I think is the name. Yep. We're all involved in making sure that cannabis was not going to be a legal substance because those immigrants from other countries, including from Mexico, used it, as did those the indentured servants of African Americans in this country. It's one of the worst freaking parts of our history that I studied.
So where is the word like marijuana tied into that? So
loosely translated, it's slang for evil weed. Okay? And they put together this propaganda campaign that was eventually turned into a movie called Reefer Madness, and they got cannabis banned. Now, Hearst, DuPont, they were all in the timber industry. They did not want hemp to compete with them. So that was their so it was a monetary and it was a racist term that drove it, and that's why the people in the cannabis industry don't like to use the word marijuana.
And it's actually interesting in the sense that when you think of the reasons why cannabis was knocked out, nothing to really do with the substance itself. It had to do with it impacted all other businesses.
Right. Yeah, the competitive factor of it.
And it just it's a better product.
Tobacco
was on the decline. And everyone said, well, what do we do?
Right.
And I think what you see on the it took 100 years to get to develop prohibition. Right. And prohibition, as we know, was a great failure.
So was the war on drugs.
So in the war on drugs. Because when you think about it, one of the things the federal government looked at was the loss of income. Mm-hmm. Taxation is a very important part of government.
Yes.
And you look at the taxation that can come about, and it's a new tax,
right,
versus taxing people higher tax rates.
Right.
And the reality is that, like alcohol, there are certain people that can't smoke cannabis and take cannabis, but you shouldn't outlaw it. 10% of the people in the world can't drink, but we knew that was a failure. 2.5% of the world can't gamble. We knew that was a failure to get. So I don't know what the number is in marijuana, but it's probably pretty much consistent with alcohol. And I think it's a failure, but it's a long time coming. And you look today, you look around, you look at the people here today. I mean, we got people from their 20s to their 80s.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And it's just tremendous.
You know, we interviewed Barney Frank this morning. That was one of the biggest thrills of my life. He doesn't realize it, but it really
And I'm
was.
sure Bonnie made you sure you knew you were polite to him.
I was very polite to him.
Incredibly smart guy, witty,
Oh, yes.
and he can come up with one-liners better than anyone I know.
No, he's good. He he just had back fusion surgery, so he was in a wheelchair because of the ease of getting him around. But man, still sharp as a tack, and as a proud liberal from Massachusetts, he's one of my heroes.
I didn't know you were a liberal.
Oh yeah, right. You didn't know I was a liberal. Are you kidding me? In fact, they don't make a left wing far enough out of the field for me.
Well, you consider a conservative in Massachusetts a pinko liberal anywhere else.
That's right.
So you're a socialist.
That's right. Well, and I'll tell you, we can debate socialism just for the record, but let's not go there. Let's still stick with cannabis.
Stick
if you
with
don't mind.
cannabis. That's not a
Tell me
problem.
your role in question 4. What happened? What
So
was your role?
I began doing this in 2010, getting involved in the medical side, following it through. I ran the Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission. I saw that when we were giving out licenses for people to have restaurants, that if you had a joint on you, you were prohibited from holding a liquor license in Massachusetts. And as a member of the commission, we said, this just doesn't make sense. And so you can see the problems that it caused. I think you also see, looking at the medical side, the way the law was written, they made it, looked at it being a nonprofit, and the whole idea of the nonprofit, people would feel, well, the money's going to a nonprofit. People believe in medical marijuana. I think as you follow the approach, that was on the ballot in 2012, the presidential election.
Mm-hmm.
So you bring more liberals out to vote, and you follow that through in 2016.
Isn't it amazing?
Wasn't as big of a margin.
No.
So I've been following those, working with the petitions and so forth. And so I began representing clients in the medical and recreation field, as well as helping investors figure out where to invest and working with communities. It's been an amazing ride, going from alcohol to cannabis.
Yeah. On a regular basis, I do. Oh, no, sorry. Yes, indeed. It's just part of life now. And it's all about moderation, Walter, and learning limits. And by the way, as a parent, setting boundaries for the kids that we all know the kid's job is to push up against those boundaries. What can I get away with?
I have zero experience with that.
Yeah, I know. You were such an
Boundaries?
angel.
You have no boundaries.
She was an angel.
Yep.
So was
Total
I.
walk in the park.
So was I. Trust me. It was not
So
pleasant.
were you an angel?
I think that compared to my older sister, I might not have been an angel, because my older sister paved the way, and they were like, oh, raising a daughter's not hard. Look at this. We don't have to be so strict. And then I came through, and they were just
You got
worn
away
out.
with murder, and your older
Yeah.
sister was probably so bold.
Exactly. You just told my life story.
And that's what I have. My youngest son, if I had him first, I might not have any other kids. Partially because he's
That's
the
what they
third.
feel about me. My dad's like, you're my karma, because you are like a little boy getting into trouble and like being a rebel. And then your sister was like an angel. So he's like, you're my payback. Like, you were what I was waiting for, that karma, because he was like terror.
That's what my mother said to me. My mother told me I was getting paid back tenfold
Yeah.
for the way I was with her. So that's why you need cannabis, is to relax you after you go out of the house.
Or my dad needs it to relax him from all the gray hairs I gave him.
That's and
We
I
gotta
love
get back
your
to
mother.
cannabis, Jimmy.
And I love your mother too. So I don't want to again just make it all about dad here. I love your mother too. It was
No, she just tolerates me more.
Yep.
Whereas like my dad will just be like, all right, whatever. Like, I just give in to everything, and my mom will kind of like still try and parent me a little bit. So
Has that been a failure?
what?
Parenting you?
Yeah.
Make sure when you turn to Nicole, you bring your microphone with you.
He's
Right.
doing it. He's doing
Exactly.
it.
No,
I thought I kept it on the side there, Jimmy.
I know you're very trying to be cool, Walter, which you are,
Like
by the way.
this.
Jonathan Sloan says hello.
Hey, I wore a suit for you and everything,
I know
Jimmy.
you did.
And look at the way you come.
Well, that's exactly. I'm a walking, talking billboard now. This is, it's all about brand. Okay.
It is about marketing and branding.
And by the way, I've never been a stylish guy, and I've always been painfully unhip. Is that not correct, Nicole? We made fun
One
of
would
me back
say.
in the day, right?
One would say.
Yes.
One would say.
And did you teach me to dance one day or something? Wait, did we do anything?
I have
in that
no
studio?
recollection
All right,
of
all
a
right,
dance
so I'm gonna let
lesson.
it go.
The Macarena?
Let's let it go.
Macarena.
Macarena?
No, it wasn't the Macarena, but I
Wanna
remember
do
that
it
one.
first? No.
No, thank you.
Let's go back to law, because there's been a consistent in the emergence of the cannabis industry, and it is the power of the attorney. because you are interpreting new laws and new regulations, and because the way the law is written and the way the Cannabis Commission has set up their rules, people have to get their host agreements in place before they can even get a license or even apply for a license, correct?
Yes.
Right. You can't even apply until you have an agreement.
I mean, I think what you find, so
Wow, there's an announcement. That's okay.
They said
don't
thank
mind.
you for coming.
We can still talk. I can, we can just talk
so,
right in the
I mean, I think
microphone.
what you find, so in 2012, with the passing of medical, the Attorney General, Martha Coakley, told all the communities that you need to put a zoning law in place. You can't prohibit medical marijuana facilities being located there. What the regulation did, passed by Department of Public Health, which I argue basically bans medical marijuana from communities, is that you had to obtain a letter of support, a non-opposition from a community in order for you to do business. And what you saw the communities do, because at that time we've already had gaming law in place, which specifically had a host community agreement attached to it. And so you saw the local communities, hey, wait a minute, this is a way for us to make money. And I think what you see today is that the legislature legitimized the host community agreement and included it within the statute with the understanding that they would make it fair. And it's supposed to be 5 years and up to 3%.
Right.
And we know what's going on with that now.
Right. There's been even fast and loose is how Steve Hoffman describes some of these agreements. And now he's gone back to the legislature looking for more clarity about the power of his commission over those host agreements.
And that becomes the issue. He doesn't have the power. They have a problem with it. But what do you do? That if you can't assess penalties, you can't do something.
Right.
What
Where's your
power do you
leverage?
have?
How do you create leverage to get them to follow the rules?
And one of the things the commission was, somewhat a couple of commissioners were looking at was maybe we just don't approve the application. Well, that you're harming the people applying. That doesn't make sense.
Right. And you're also harming the tax benefits you'd get from this too. And that, I mean, shouldn't that be driving the bus?
And I think when you look at this, the host community agreement,
right?
That when you look at the host community agreement, it talks up to 3% to cover the community's cost for 5 years of what it's going to be like having this new industry.
Yeah, but
in your
it's
town.
those extra, extras, the extra donation to this.
Well, and I think that
fund
becomes the issue in the sense of having this extra money. The idea is a good idea. You're going to have this new industry, let's help you fund it, but then you're going to fund it yourself 5 years later. And then all of a sudden it turned into something else. And I think that's a serious issue. You have to donate here, you have to donate there. And I think one of the things you find, the industry signed off on that. And I'll give you an example.
So do you think that's a mistake by the industry signing off on that?
I think it started with the medical.
Yeah.
And, because it was rough, everyone was rough riding, they just wanted to get into business.
Right.
I think it became an issue. I'll give you an example. A community west of Cambridge.
Yep.
There were 2 medical marijuana dispensaries looking to open in the town.
Yep.
One dispensary offered 3%. The other dispensary offered 6%. They went with the 6%. Now the problem you run into is Cambridge didn't really have a host community agreement or a percentage. So if you're in that other town and less than a mile away is a dispensary in Cambridge, how can you compete cost-wise?
Right.
And I think the reality is that just shouldn't have been allowed to happen. And you would think the way the legislation was drafted, the idea was to keep that from happening. But, you hire a lawyer can tell you anything you want as long as you pay him.
Up front, I might add. It's a good
always get that retainer, Jimmy.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Have I learned that one?
So what do you think of the article in the Globe?
I knew you were going to go there. First of all, let's give credit to the Spotlight team of the Boston Globe. They are some of the best journalists. Not so much the ones that are writing all the articles now. I'm just talking about reputation-wise and through the years, the role of the journalist in our world as a kind of a cost-checking and a fact-checking it's important to have these kinds of a journalist, the job.
And the Spotlight team are still truly journalists.
Correct. And by the way, a rare breed, I got to tell you. Because,
in this industry today.
Right, because, I get it. It's really more of an entertainment thing. And these days, those lines between church and state have really become let's just say, what's the word?
Wishy-washy.
Opacity. You get to, the
Opaque?
opacity line where you go from 100% down to 70%.
Translucent?
Translucent. Yeah, she's got it.
I like that
By
one.
the
I
way,
gotta-
she's the college graduate.
I have a college
I'm the one who has the
education.
head injury. All right. Anyway,
And we know. No.
No. So
Need another adjective. I'm over here.
that's right. Well, no,
We
what
should
I
have had her in the middle.
What I had, no. What I need now is, yeah, that's true. I get what you're saying now. What I need now is my train of thought was going to where, Nicole, because this is what I need. I need help when I lose my train of thought.
What were we talking about?
What were we talking about?
You were talking about the church and state lines being a little
Journalist in
blurry.
the spotlight piece. Okay,
Brought him right back.
that's right. No,
That's why I'm here.
By the way, there's quite a few people out there helping me get right back. Let's just say I've got a whole team out there that are pulling for me.
And you can find things in this building that can help bring you
That's-
back.
Yes, I know, and maybe that's why I'm down at the end of the day now, and it's kind of like, my blood sugar's down, the whole 9 yards.
Some nice CBD will solve that.
So, so the what they're talking about bringing in the big investor, the big companies. We're already seeing it with Netta being sold to Wrigley, right? The guy,
Right.
the Wrigley guy. We're seeing. Look, I interviewed Tilt Holdings. I mean, they're one of the largest in the country. And
Cambridge roots.
Cambridge roots. So we're seeing. How can you not? Steve Hoffman says this. I believe in a free market. So I mean, are we concerned about it because we care about those who have been imprisoned unfairly and aren't getting a shot at getting licenses in any way? It's been tough, but this is capitalism. This is kind of how it works.
Investors don't necessarily discriminate. It's all the same color, green.
Right.
And if you can't put together a proposal that's a good business proposal, it doesn't matter what color you are. And I think that's really where, and this is part of what the discussion the commission has had, is that over the last few weeks on economic empowerment, is that it may not be just about getting people that were hurt by the war on drugs into business, but maybe make sure that they're able to work in the industry
Right.
to develop.
Which is what I talked to Tilt about,
Right.
and they are implementing that, or they're start. And it's important that socially responsible capitalism is something that you can really embrace and respect.
Right. It's good governance. It's
Remember
doing what
Wainwright Bank?
Yes.
Yeah, they were all about social
So the-
responsibility capitalism.
They're no longer in business, though.
No, they're not. They sold.
They sold to Easton.
Was it? Oh God, I remember. I met Jan Miller was involved with it. He's with Eastern Bank now. I don't know
Yes.
if you know him, but let's get back to some of the laws. And what are the what do you think we're going to be? Let's talk about the social clubs because that's been a constant here. What's your vision? What do you think you're going to see?
I think if you look at it, we've passed a law that has legalized marijuana, allows it to be sold. Cannabis. Sorry, thank you. I apologize.
All
for
right,
that.
I'm going to have a kangaroo court.
I'm a former prosecutor,
court.
so
I know you
that's what
are.
we called it
I
there.
know.
But when you look at, oh my God, now I lost my train of thought.
See that?
But
social clubs.
But I think
Yep.
we've now legalized it.
Yep.
You can't smoke it in public.
Right.
You can't smoke it in Section 8 housing. You can't smoke it in federally subsidized housing. You can't smoke it in condos.
Maybe we
You
don't
can't-
need to smoke it anymore.
No, but there's right, and that's what. So one, you got to give people a place to partake. You can't drink in public. We've
Right.
given people bar rooms and restaurants to go
Open
to.
bottles of beer in the car and all that. No,
And
we don't want
to
that.
give you an example, like, so I sorry for keep going back to Cambridge, but that's one of the things Cambridge is looking at, and they're not talking about smoking in public.
Yep.
But potentially there are some candidates in Cambridge, some councillors that are saying maybe we need to do a home rule petition that we can set up areas for people to be able to consume cannabis products and not be in violation because
Like a designated smoking area.
Well, yeah, exactly.
When
but
you
they
step
don't want to do the
outside of
smoking,
a
but that's
facility.
exactly right. Is
So-
the whole idea is this: why don't we set up areas for these people to be able to go and partake? The hard part is that we have designated smoking areas for cigarettes. Maybe there should be designated smoking areas to be able to smoke marijuana as well. I mean,
I will admit, when I have had a, little civil disobedience, I do search out the smoking areas because the cigarette smoke is a stronger smell than. And by the way, I vape. I do not smoke anymore. So, that's
you look
where I
like
come.
a vapor.
Of course I am. Yeah, I remember when the first time I went to the first words to my patient advocate, and I don't even like the other word, so I'm not going to use it. The patient advocate was, I don't want to smoke this anymore. I want to find out another way to get the same effect without putting smoke in my lungs.
And that's really good because when you try to explain to me, vaping, dabbing, that is not a combustible source.
Right.
You are heating oil
And-
to a temperature to create a vape.
Right.
The vape. So
And
that
did you know
that causes the same thing.
Did you know hookahs aren't combustible either? They're just warm.
It's set up the
coal.
same way.
Right. So maybe the hookah lounge is the model that they could look at.
And that's right, because they're not covered under the smoking ban, the hookah lounges.
See, They're
And because
actually-
it's not because the statute says that you can't smoke a combustible product in public or in places of public accommodation.
Yes.
So,
but
and
how do
someone asked
cigar
me that-
bars get away with it?
well, there's actually a law that allows a cigar bar, and that it allows that as long as more than 50% of the funds, majority of the funds, are coming from cigars versus food and alcohol, that it's okay to have.
So it's like very specifically regulated.
Right, and it is because people do like their cigars. The problem is, I don't know, can you really truly make a cigar bar that the majority of the funds are coming from cigars and not from alcohol and food? I don't know for sure if that's possible, but I have a friend that's looking to hire me to do that. Because there are people that like to go and smoke a cigar, would like a scotch or a port or something, and really have a good time. And I think the same thing is true with cannabis, is the ability to go with other people. It's worked in Amsterdam. It's worked in other countries. You haven't seen a problem. They're a bigger problem with bars in Boston, as we can see from the late news stories,
Right.
than you're going to have with cannabis, on-premise cannabis clubs.
Right, and the Summit Lounge out in Worcester, I visited it for the first time.
Nice family.
They're really
business.
nice. I love that it's a family
It
business.
is.
I
The
didn't
mother
know-
and father are there working with them.
I love it. And
Keeping him in line?
Kyle's a great guy, and he's got two other brothers that are already in the business. Not necessarily local, but they're in the business. And that's a private club, and they get away with it because it's private and all that. But they don't have a food license, but they know the importance of having prepackaged items around, just in case you get those munchies, because we all know that might have some effect.
And, you can charge a premium for a good bag of Doritos.
Oh man, Doritos! The prime thing. We had a
The
con-
ranch style. What style do you like?
Oh no, I'm a traditional.
You're
Ranch.
a traditional.
Yeah, you like
You like
ranch?
ranch?
Yeah.
He's a traditionalist.
I'm a
Uh,
traditional. What a shock.
You like the nacho cheese?
No, original flavor. Yeah, the Doritos nacho cheese. Yeah, that's it. Yes, sorry.
The ranch has got a nice little bite to it, though, doesn't
Yeah.
See, I
the
don't
cool
do any
blue.
spicy food. Nothing spicy. I don't
No,
like
no,
anything.
I don't like spicy anything. Doritos are not spicy.
Okay. No, Doritos are not. But if you
No,
said
cool
the
ranch,
ranch ones-
is not
they
spicy.
have those other ones. They got what
Sweet
are the
and
peppers?
chili.
The
Oh,
peppers.
yeah.
A chili pepper.
Chili. Phew, forget it. I walk by it and I get indigestion. We were talking about the law.
So, I mean, it's funny. So when the whole talk about social clubs came
Yeah.
up, I was talking to one of the commissioners, and the former commissioner of Boston, police commissioner of Boston, was telling her, "I smell marijuana, cannabis." No, let's say for him, it was marijuana everywhere.
Probably, yeah.
It's all over the place. And
Yeah.
I said to the commissioner, I said, I have no idea what Boston Public Common he was walking through, but I've been smelling cannabis in Boston Common my whole life, and it's been powerful. So you can't blame it on the legalization of marijuana.
Correct. Yeah,
Cannabis.
I will say this about it, though. I will say this about it.
I caught myself on that
I
one.
will say this. I'll give you my own little anecdote. Going to a Celtics game, my favorite team in Boston, and going into the parking garage and smelling it, walking to the garden and smelling it, after the garden, not in the garden, after the garden, driving home on the Mass Pike, I smelled it from a car coming, next to us. So because people recognize it, it's legal now. I can do this. I'm not going to get busted. I'm not going to go to jail. I'm going to get a ticket maybe,
Well,
or I'm going to get my license taken.
So I actually travel around doing talks to different groups,
Yep.
and law enforcement's there with me. And one of the things law enforcement says, look, especially when you're in the city, we got so much else to worry about.
Oh, absolutely.
Unless you're in our face, more than likely, it's still illegal. To
Right.
smoke and to partake in
No,
cannabis in
they're
public.
using it as an
but,
educational
But the
thing.
same token, when you think about everything else going on,
Least of their work.
it's the least of their worries. And so,
Right.
are they going to bother you if you're in Cambridge Common, Boston Common?
I mean, they
More than likely not.
barely bother you if you're shooting up. They see that as like that's kind of your own prerogative as long as you're not bothering anyone. We have other things to worry about. I reported that I saw people shooting up when I was in Quincy recently.
Oh,
There
by
was-
the Quincy Center Cheese Station?
No, it was inside one of the buildings because I report in a building in Quincy sometimes. And someone was shooting up in the stairway, and I called the police and said what was going on, and they were like, well, what are they doing? Are they like gonna are they doing anything? And I was like, I mean, they're shooting up in the hallway. And they were like, I think they'll just leave you alone. I'm like, okay.
They didn't
well,
say that, oh, they're probably diabetic or something like that? No.
no, they know exactly what's going on,
Right.
but they have other things to worry about, things that are more urgent.
I was on one of the buses going to Quincy Center, and I love public transportation in Boston. I think, contrary to people, all in all, we have a good system. I'm listening to these people behind me, a girlfriend and boyfriend talking, and another kid gets on the bus, and he's telling his girlfriend, hey, I overdosed the other night, and he saved me. He brought me back, and he didn't steal my wallet. And then the other guy said, I overdosed last night. And I'm like,
wow.
I mean, you're looking at this. You're looking at the problem with opiates.
Yep.
You look at the
Right.
problem with heroin. And here we are putting up this stink about cannabis.
Right.
Yeah, it's so
We have so many other
minor.
problems.
Yeah.
Right. That's good. Walter, this is one of the reasons why we immediately bonded, because I totally think the same way you do on that, too. I mean, and we've spent far too much time to do this. Now, you're on the radio. You know what it means when they do this, right?
I know. He's has a very good circle with his
Yes,
with his finger
well,
there.
he's a Canton
Wrap
High
it up
School,
here.
Curry College. He knows how to give a watt. He knows how to do a rap.
He has a
And
good president at Curry College.
Plus, he also knows.
Nice Irish kid.
Plus, he also knows that I tend to go on and on and on, and
And you put us together?
That's
We
right.
could be here all
That's what
day.
he's saying. Okay, these guys need their own show. Real quick before you go, you are doing a show. You do a podcast. Tell me about it. Where
I
is it
do.
and all
I
that?
do a podcast on Radio Entrepreneurs called In the Weeds. It's an
Wait,
internet.
wait. Is it just In the Weeds, or is it In the Weeds with Walter Sullivan?
I'm a co-host, so I can't be Walter Sullivan.
Okay.
And it's on Radio Entrepreneurs, and it's really brings entrepreneurs on that talk about why they got in the business.
Yep.
And we see a lot of ancillary businesses coming in. This is why they decided. Accountants, builders. It's amazing the industry packaging. And I actually had the packaging person on on the show, and it's amazing. I'm sure they discuss packaging is how it has to be child proof.
Right.
We have to worry about dogs as well.
Wait, we talked about dogs earlier today. Let me talk about childproof just for a second. And
This isn't me. This is Jimmy.
This is me. I'm carrying on because this is a pet peeve of mine because I've got arthritic fingers. I have really a lot of problems opening up childproof. Now, there are people out there who probably think, well, that's because I never grew up. But that's another story. Point being, there are certain containers that you can get that are childproof that are also helpful for people who have arthritic hands.
Well, you look at medications that you get today at the pharmacy.
Yep.
That the cap is childproof, but if you flip it over,
Right.
so it allows someone in your position,
Right.
to
I
get
all
someone
my-
else to open it for
my
you.
mail order
Right.
prescriptions come that way.
and then you're just more protective on where you put it.
It's about responsibility.
Yes.
It's about acting like an adult because it's an adult product.
Yes. I mean, you look at parents have parties at their houses with alcohol everywhere.
Yes, they
all of
do.
a sudden, they wake up and their 2-year-old child's drunk because they left the drinks there, and the kid doesn't know.
Okay.
I think we have to go though, don't we?
No. Nicole's ready to leave.
Nicole,
She
where
got
you going
cleared.
on us?
She got cleared. She was out of frame, right? And she checked it to make sure. I told you, she's well trained.
Now, Nicole,
She is
no one's going to watch our
real
show now.
Pro. She is a real pro. Walter,
Jimmy, they're not going to watch us now.
all right,
We're
well,
going.
we could just keep going.
I know.
But you also know the power of the technical guy.
You mean you can make me look good?
And sound good, and more importantly, kill your microphone. All right, so I think we're not wrapped though, guys. Is it?
Did you guys
We have
stop
two more
us?
interviews, right? Two more interviews. Oh, we're still on. Yeah, it's good. Frickin' frack. We're still going, and I have two more interviews. Two more people. Perfect. All right.
Hey, Jimmy, it's a
Walter,
pleasure.
Hey, you're awesome, and you
We
know
enjoyed
what?
it. We'll do this
Make
again.
sure you know my phone number so that I can be coming onto your show, and then you.
And
come
I'll
onto
get you
my
some
show.
cannabis.
What?
Oh, you already have more than enough at
I
home.
really-
How are your plants doing?
I do not grow. I have a black thumb, and I'd rather throw money at it than grow it.
See you,
Sorry.
Jimmy.
All right, Walter Sullivan. Thank you.